Okay, hi there. Welcome back from your break. This is Dr. Matthew J. Traum. We are in the midst of a discussion about purchase orders, what they are, and how to fill them out for the design course. I stopped on this slide before, and what I didn't say last time that I intended to say but ran out of time was I wanted to spend a little more attention on the website here, the address. So the vendor, in this case, of course, is McMaster Car, and so I put in all the contact information for McMaster Car, address, phone number. This website is the not just the McMaster Car website, but the website of this particular page, the product page, right? And so that's important. If you can provide a link directly to the specific part that you want to buy, it's better to put that there if possible, so that when this purchase order goes to the purchasing office, they can just click right on the link, right, and get the part without having to try to go through and fill all this stuff in. The other thing that I want to mention, and this is why so many people use McMaster Car, even though it's pretty expensive, is they give like these really good descriptions of the parts, right? So you can see here. This is just a snapshot of the McMaster Car website from which I got this lock nut, and it says here low strength steel, thin nylon, insert lock nut, zinc plated, right? So this, and look, it's the exact same thing here. So really easy to go to the McMaster site, find what you want, and just copy the description right out of McMaster and drop it into the purchase order. McMaster is also good because, of course, you can get engineering drawings of all the components, and so you don't have to redraw them yourselves because McMaster just gives you the part drawing as well. So good resource to use. Good resource to use, but often more expensive than purchasing from somewhere else. Okay, so we talked about the nut. The other off-the-shelf item is, of course, the pencils. And so, where did I get these pencils? Where they're customized pencils. They have the website of my company on them, and they're this kind of nice red color, which is one of the colors that goes along with the company. And so, I had to get these pencils. Custom made. And so the place that I went to do that was pencils.com. So weirdly, pencils.com sells in units of 432 pencils. I don't know why such a weird number. Maybe that's the number that fits in a particular sized pencil box. Who knows? But for 432 customized pencils with that burgundy color and the website printed on it there, the company's website, that's going to set me back $95.04 and $23.39 for shipping. So I go in here and I place a second row, right? So this is a different vendor, so it gets a different row, different part, and different vendor, so it gets a different row. And here I don't necessarily have a part number because this is a custom part, and so I have an order number instead, which is right here. So I'm going to purchase one of these. The quantity, of course, is box. 432 come in a box. Here's my price. Here's my shipping. I add those together, and that gives me my subtotal. The vendor is pencils.com. And I've got the vendor address and the city and the phone number in case the purchasing department needs to call them. So one thing that is probably important to point out here that I sort of touched on, but I want to emphasize even more. When you guys did this in DML, when you guys had purchase orders in DML, you would have one purchase order literally for every part that you were going to buy, right? Or maybe one purchase order per vendor. But in this case, we're going to just, for sake of just brevity, right, to make everything kind of more compact, we're going to just put it all on one sheet, right? So, and I'm doing it right now in the order of first OTS parts, and then OTS parts that require modification, and then just raw materials for customized parts. So you guys are actually going to see 4 entries here for 4 different parts, 3 from McMaster and 1 from pencils.com. So each one of these rows represents a different part. And even if you have different vendors, go ahead and put all of those different vendors for all the different parts on the same purchase order. Normally, when you're at an industry, you probably wouldn't do that. You'd probably have a unique purchase order for every vendor. But in our case, we just want to keep things kind of simple and efficient in terms of the number of pages of purchase orders that you're generating. So we're going to just have you put it all on one sheet. So it's all just in one place for us. Okay. So I think that's all I wanted to say about the OTS parts. So now we're going to move on to the modified OTS parts. So remember from earlier in the course, OTS is just off-the-shelf part. It's something that you buy and don't change at all. It ends up in the final assembly basically in the same form that you received it from the seller. A modified OTS part is a part where it does already have some features that are valuable or interesting that you want to preserve, but then you also have to somehow modify the part to kind of get it into the assembly and functioning the way that you want it to. So in the case of the pencil top focus toys, the one modified OTS part, that's my 5 screws here, right? My nylon screws. And of course, the reason that these are not OTS parts, but modified OTS parts is, remember, they have a hole in them, and the nylon screws don't come with a hole in them like that. I gotta put that hole in there, and the way that I put that hole in there is just with a conventional drilling process on a drill press, and there's an image of me actually doing it on one of these off-white colored nylon screws. So even though this is now a modified OTS part, so it's slightly different in the kind of type of part that it is, I'm still going to put it on the same purchase order form, because again, I'm trying just to go for brevity here, and we want as much information as possible condensed into the smallest number of pages, and so it's going to go on the same PO. So here is the part from McMaster Carr. I should mention, by the way, that these kits, the teachers, when they buy these, they would get 5 of these, right? And presumably they'd hand 1 to every student. And if you had a class of 25, you'd buy 5 kits. 5 times 5 gets you 25. But the teachers do also have the option of selecting between black nylon screws and the white nylon screws that I was showing you in the previous image here and here. So that does give them like a little bit of customizability, right? It's I think Ford is famous for saying that you can have a car any color you want so long as it's black. Well, in my world, you can have a pencil top focus toy of any color so long as it's either off-white or black. So haha, okay. Anyway, so let's jump back here, right? So here's the part on McMaster Carr. This just happens to be the black ones. If I wanted maybe to add an additional line, I might add the white ones if I was creating an order that was larger than 5 of these going in a kit. But for our purposes, we're just gonna stick with 5, and so this is plenty good. They come in packs of 10, so I'm gonna get them in units of 1 pack, and McMaster charges $6.90 for a single pack. Now, here's an interesting subtlety for shipping. I'm going to put 0, and the reason that I'm going to put 0 is because I've got McMaster Carr here for my lock nuts, and I've got it again here for my nylon screws, and so a clever purchasing department will put all of these things together and order them all at one time to save on shipping cost. And so you can kind of remind them that they can do that, remind them that this same vendor appears multiple times in this purchase order by putting a shipping cost of 0, right? That will at least cause them to sort of look and say, is that right? Oh, yes. Okay. I'm paying for shipping up here, and so I don't have to pay for it down here. So that's just a little kind of trick that you can use if you've got multiple parts coming from the same vendor. You only have to pay for shipping once. They put it all in one box, and it gets to you for that one price. Okay, So that's our one modified OTS part. Next is custom parts. So we have one type of custom part in these pencil top fidget kits, and that is the focus or the fidget nut. And these are custom parts because they basically start out as just raw material, right? So it's just literally a billet of aluminum, and I cut the aluminum into 1 inch by 1 inch squares that are a 1/4 inch thick. I drill the hole, I tap the hole, and that's then the finished part. And here is kind of the process that I go through, right? So here's that piece of aluminum. I cut those 1 inch by 1 inch squares on a bandsaw. Center drill and drill the hole, and then tap the threads. So those are the manufacturing processes that I go through to make those. So they're definitely custom parts. There's very little other than just the 1 inch dimension on one side of this that I preserve that's actually useful in the final product. And so these are very decidedly on the custom part side rather than the modified OTS part side. And now, yes, to some extent, maybe you could argue that this is a modified OTS part because it does have that one feature, that length of 1 inch that's preserved. So it's sort of up to you, right? And ultimately, when you look at the purchase order form, I'm not denoting here whether these are OTS, modified OTS, or custom parts. And the purchasing department doesn't need to know that. So I don't even have that information on here. So it's sort of up to you, kind of how you want to classify it and what order you want to do things in, right? You may very well do this in a different order. The result is the same. So don't worry too much about whether something is modified, OTS, custom, or just OTS when you're filling out the purchase order form. Okay, so I would like to make a whole bunch of these, more than just five. You can buy 1 inch wide by 1/4 inch thick pieces of aluminum that are 6 inches long. I can make six of them, but the aluminum gets cheaper in terms of its cost for volume if I buy longer pieces of it. And so I went to McMaster and I bought the longest section that I could, which is a 6 foot long section of the stuff. And a 6 foot long section cost me $12.74. Again, I need it to be a 1/4 inch thick and 1 inch wide. And so those two dimensions are set by just the requirements of having an 1 inch by 1 inch square fidget nut. And then I'm going to cut that last dimension on a bandsaw to make each one of these 1 inch long to make those squares. Again, I'm buying it from McMaster. The units is feet. And I've got six of those, and it looks like I've got these reversed. They should say 6 feet instead of feet 6. So that's a mistake. But you just flip those two and you've got it right. My cost again is $12.74. The shipping again is 0, right? Because I'm using the same manufacturer, or sorry, the same supplier, McMaster Car, that I used before. So here's the subtotal without shipping, and then just repeat that information so that it's very clear that I'm using the exact same vendor. And again, here's the McMaster Car website, not just their generic website, but the website that leads directly to this page, so that when this purchase order goes to the purchasing office, they just click on the link and up comes the part immediately for them to buy without having to have them dig through the website to try to find it. Okay, so assuming that I'm just going to make, 5 of these for one kit, I've got all the parts that I need in this purchase order the way that I filled it out here. And so I am now just going to come up with a subtotal. So it looks like between raw materials and shipping that it's going to end up costing me $155.35 to buy all this stuff. Now, one kind of final important point is I've got a lot more, for example, lock nuts and a longer piece of aluminum and even more nuts and pencils screws and pencils than I actually need. Nonetheless, this is what I have to pay in order to get all of this stuff to my warehouse so that I can make these parts, right? And so the material cost, at least on the purchase order, might be higher than the cost that you calculate for the parts of the raw materials in the bill of materials, because I'm buying like more stuff than I need, but I can't buy it in smaller increments, if that makes sense. Okay, so looking at my timer, I'm right up against 15 minutes again. So I'm going to stop here and we'll pick it up in a moment. See ya.